Hello and welcome back. This is the Clay Golem. This is Foundry VTT version 13 with the D&D game engine, and in this video we're going to take another look at traps. Now we have done this before, although it was a little while ago, and things have changed. We're now on version 13, for example. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some example traps, and starting with the really basic of how you can implement traps, taking them up through complexity. And the reason we're doing that, of course, is not everybody wants to spend the time or is even interested in fully automating these things. So let's have a look at some options of how you can do this as simply as possible, so that we can focus on playing rather than focusing on setting up. But I know a lot of you really enjoy the setting up part of it, like I do. I really enjoy building the maps. Nerd. It's all cool. So we're going to look at a couple of different ways of doing this. There will be probably another 1 or 2 videos following this because there's quite a lot to cover. We're going to be looking at some simple pit traps and then bringing up their complexity, but also some tripwire traps as well, because while they're relatively similar, there's different ways to handle things. So let's start off with the simplest possible way that you can implement these in Foundry, which is what I've got here. This is a tile. Okay, so all I've done is I've gone to create a tile, all right, and I've put that out and I've selected an image. So there it is. I can resize it to be whatever I want. Obviously, I want to make it fairly reasonable size. To tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick on the grid here just so that it makes life a little bit easier for you to see where these things are. We can make sure we're lined up, etc. So all that is a tile. Now I can lock that in place so I can't accidentally move it around. That's always a good idea when you're working with tiles. If you don't intend to move them, lock them. If I hide it, my players cannot see that. So they have no idea that that is there. And I've got somebody down here. Come on, Sorryman. Oh, Sorryman's going to flip upside down. We're all going to flip upside down. There we go. Let's use Tharavol. We've got these two who don't flip. This old chap, whoever he is, I think he's Bob. As a player, you know, they wander over it, but nothing happens, of course. There's no automation here whatsoever. So the very simplest form of this is as they go to wander over, the DM tells them to stop, whacks the spacebar to pause the game, etc. Now, as the DM, of course, you can then, as that tile, you can show that tile. So they go, oh, okay, that's what it is. They can see it. But by pausing the game, you can then explain what's happened. You can ask for that dexterity check or that saving throw, whatever it might be, and just run that as you would as if it was face to face. And then you can just show the image. The reason why it's good to have the tile there in the first place is because it reminds the DM that there is a trap there. You don't ever have to reveal it. Of course you don't. But that's really is the very simplest way that you can do that. A visual reminder. So as the player walks over it, the DM goes, oh yeah, as you walk over that, I need a dexterity saving throw from you, as the floor creaks and then suddenly gives way. You don't even need to show them the tile. I mean, you've gone to the effort of putting a tile in, so you might as well. You could just have a tile with the name of the trap on it for you to remind you what it is. Easy peasy. What about tripwires? Well, exactly the same thing. I've not locked this one, so I've got a tripwire here. You can see I've just put a little image in so that I know it's there. Now, yeah, I can reveal that to the players. I've tinted mine red so it shows up a bit better when it's hidden. I can show them that, but for a tripwire, I probably wouldn't reveal it. But for me, it's just a reminder of the DM that there's the tripwire there. Yes, I could just have I could have an information tile that I put here that just says tripwire. Oh, I'm on the wrong bit. You know, it could just say tripwire. If I can type trip word, I could just have tripwire. And then I could put that and go, all right, there we go. That's placed. I can hide it. I can lock it. What I ought to do is make sure that's information, not an object. There we go. Players can't see that, but I know there's a tripwire. Really, absolutely the basic way you could do this. You don't even need to have the word tripwire on there. For a tripwire, you could do that. There you go. There's your tripwire. It's not the way I would do it, and that's not what this channel is about, of course, because you could probably work that out for yourself. So they are the absolute simplest way of doing those two things. We are not using any mods. Let's have a quick look at our mods list. At the moment, we've got 0 mods in, active mods Zero. Haven't even got the handbook or anything like that in. All right. You can do this with no mods. What about using regions to do this? Now, I'm going to mention this because somebody, if I don't, somebody will say, oh, why don't you use regions? So if we create a region, look at the behaviors that we have within that region. We can adjust the darkness level. We can set it as difficult terrain. We can put some scrolling text. We can execute a macro or a script. So 100% you can use regions to run a macro or a script that does your trap. But if you don't do macros and scripting, then that's not really very much use for you. You can modify movement cost, you can pause the game, you can you can rotate the area, you can suppress weather, you can teleport token, or you can toggle behavior. Now, toggle behavior, for those who don't know, it does allow you to do things like, oh yeah, when they move in, it's going to do this behavior. So the behaviors that are enabled when an event occurs. Okay, so you can do stuff like that, but that really relies on scripting. And we want to do it as easy as possible to get the best effect. And a lot of you already know where I'm going with this. We're going to want to use Monk's active tile triggers because it will help us do similar things to regions, but using tiles, and give us a lot of those abilities and things we're going to want to use already. So I'm going to get rid of that region. We're not going to be using regions for this. Like I say, you can, if you know how to do the macros and scripting and you want to do it that way, knock yourselves out. We're not going to cover that in this video, mostly because I'm not very good at that stuff. If any of you have got traps that you're doing using regions and you're using macros, scripts, etc. to make them work, if you want to let me know, brilliant. I'm more than happy to cover them and show other people how to do it, but you know that I rely on Monk's active tile triggers. Alright, so let's get Monk's active tile triggers installed. So scrolling down through this huge list, because I have tons of stuff, of course I do. I've got to find M for Monk's active tile triggers. We're going to bring that in. As you saw, that's the only one that we have installed now. We can now start doing more interesting stuff. Now, bearing in mind, this is a tile, and this is a tile. Let's get Bob, or whatever his name is, out the way. Go on, start off. We don't need you right now. So we're going to be doing the same thing, but using Monk's active tile triggers on these two tiles. So, number of different things that we can choose to do, of course. If I double click on this so that we open it up, we've now got this triggers part. Okay, and that allows us, similar to the regions, but with a lot more options, it allows us to set up how this works, what the actions are, and potentially some pictures. So for setup, and again, this is not a Monk's active tile tutorial, so I'm not going to go through everything. For setup, I'm going to say, well, if it's controlled by anyone, so NPCs can set it off as well, not when they enter it, but you can have when they move within, when they stop within the tile. If you've got a weak floor, that is fine, as long as they don't stop on it. You can use this one. You can use clicking on it. You can use, when you hover your mouse in and out, beginning and end of combat. Lots and lots of different things you can do, but we're going to use enter. So when any tokens owned by anybody enter this square, it's going to do stuff. This square is active. Do the tokens have to have sight for trigger? I turn that off because a lot of my NPCs I don't have token vision on, and I don't want it to not work for them. Now, bearing in mind, really useful for things like pit traps or weak stairs, collapsing bridges. They might not go off every time. That bridge might not collapse every time something walks across it. We can change that percentage chance. Every time a token goes across it, there's a 30% chance it will collapse. So if you want to do that, 100% you can do that. 100%. We're not going to do that. So we have got when a token enters, it's going to do an action. And what kind of actions can we do? And again, we're going to build up slowly. So don't jump to the end point yet. So we said that the DM can pause the game, etc. We've got a whole shed loads of options that we can use as part of Monk's active tile triggers. This is what makes it far more powerful than doing this with regions. as well as the fact that we by default have an image for it. So we can, if I go to P, we can get it to pause the game. Okay, we can just leave that on. So when our token comes wandering along here, it's paused the game already. Done that automatically. I know I can move because I'm in, that's the DM. So that's one thing we can straight away get it to do, and it will do that every time. If I unpause it as soon as I enter. Notice it doesn't pause it when I exit. That's nice and easy. And we could do that for the tripwire as well, of course. Absolutely the same thing for both of these. So we can get it to pause game. We can also get it, remember one of the things I said is like, oh, you might want to show them the tile. So we can go to show hide. We're going to select this tile and we're going to show it. Okay, so we're going to pause the game and we're going to show this tile. So our very first step in our automation, notice you can't see this. It pauses it and the tile is now showing. So it saves the DM from having to do that. You can still do everything 100% manually. It just gives you that little extra bit where it will pause the game for you. Now, watch when, let's hide that again just so that you can see it. No, make sure it's active. If I drag my token over it, it will pause the game, but the token's over there now. So that's the next thing you might say, well, yeah, okay, if they're moving it like that, but what if they're dragging across? You know, and the same with the tripwire. If they drag into the next room, you don't necessarily want that to happen. So you want to pause the game to stop them starting next movement. But how do you stop them from moving when they trigger the tile? We can add onto this another one. And again, you can read through these. A lot of these just make common sense when you look at them. We want to stop token movement and snap it to grid. We don't have to, of course, but I'm going to snap it to grid. So now we're going to pause the game, we're going to show our pit, and we're going to stop that token from moving. So let's pause it. So if we're using the keyboard to move one at a time, that's no problem. As soon as we do that, it's going to pause the game and it will stop that token from moving any further. But it doesn't have any effect unless we're dragging our token. So let's drag our token across. See, it stopped that time. So it stopped him on the pit trap or stopped him at the tripwire. It's going to work exactly the same for both of these. So that's a really, again, a nice way of doing it. We're not automating any damage. We're not automating any rolls. We're not doing anything like that whatsoever. All we're doing is saying, you know, actually pause the game and stop the token so that you as the DM can deal with that situation. And that's going to work exactly the same for this one. Right, we can elevate this a bit more. I'll be back in a moment once I've prepared for that. Alright, so the next thing we can do is add a little bit of atmospherics to these. So let's have a look at this tripwire now that I've set up. And if I stop talking, you should be able to hear. Hopefully you could hear there's a twang sound. So it's now paused the game. It has stopped the token from moving. And it has played a twang sound. So that's really, really easy to do. Because again, Monk's active tile triggers. You will see for this, notice for this, I have not got it to show this tile. It's a tripwire. Once it's twanged, it's snapped and there's nothing to see, basically. So I haven't included that. So we're going to pause the game, we're going to stop token movement. And then all we've done is we've decided to play a sound file. I just downloaded a sound file. I just did a quick Google. I found one that seemed reasonably accurate or reasonably okay to use. Use anything you like. Absolutely. It might be the click of a pin coming out of a grenade or anything like that that you use. Because while we're in D&D, this is not restricted to D&D. Who gets to hear that sound? It will default to the triggering player. So just be wary that you may well want to update that. You may want other people to hear it. You don't have to. This could be a pressure plate pad and you just want the player who stepped on it to hear the click and nobody else. Bearing in mind that your pressure plate could set off a trap somewhere else or open a door or all sorts of things. We're doing obviously we're doing a tripwire trap. I want everybody to be able to hear that. if I'm going to go to the effort of putting sounds in. You can adjust the volume. We don't want to loop it. You can have it fade if you want to, restrict it to this scene, prevent it from playing, etc. We're not going to go through all of those details. All we want to do is make sure everybody can hear it. Now, the downside, just going to save that, the downside of this is, yes, it's paused the game. Even if I unpause the game, if the character walks over it again, it's just going to keep going twang. Why is that? Because this tile, it remains active. So what we can do with this one is we can say, well, actually, once this has paused the game, stopped the token movement, we're going to do a whole bunch of other stuff. We want to deactivate this. The tripwire is done. So we can add in here, activate, deactivate. We can select this tile and we can tell it to deactivate. So now when the first player goes through it, it goes off. But any subsequent attempts to move, the tripwire's gone. It's not going to do anything anymore. So that's one thing to just bear in mind if you are going to start adding these little automations and stuff on. Can it go off more than once? Some traps, like a pressure plate trap that fires darts, you might say that yes, it goes off repeatedly. Chances are it doesn't, because some poor sod's got to go and reload it. But you can absolutely do that. Now with our pit trap, where we've got it to also show this tile, I've added a different sound file on for this one. So again, when we go over this one, again, just a sound effect. It's not the one I would use, but I just grabbed a sound effect to illustrate the point. It's revealed the tile, it paused the game, it stopped the token movement, and it played our sound file. Once again, you're going to want to do the same thing where you deactivate that tile because you don't need it to do it. So now we need to decide what of these individual traps are going to do. Now a pit trap, ideally what we wanted to do is to call for a dexterity saving throw to prevent them from falling down the trap. What about our tripwire? What are we going to do with that? Well, again, we might go for a dexterity saving throw, but the effect of these two traps is going to be quite different. The tripwire can set off almost anything. I think we'll probably go with something like an arrow shooting out the wall, but we will look at other options. With the pit trap, it's basically falling damage, right? So that's quite straightforward. So let me get those set up and then I'll come back and we'll have a look at those. So for our next bit then, we want to request a saving throw. In this case, a dexterity saving throw, but it could be whatever you want it to be. It might be an athletics check. However you want to handle various different types of traps, I'm going with a dexterity saving throw just to illustrate the point. You will notice that I've got my module management up there and I've added an additional module on, which is Monk's token bar. What this allows you to do is to request dice rolls. In other words, ask the player to make a dexterity check. Now there's a number of different modules that allow you to do that, but the reason why I like Monk's token bar for this is because it integrates perfectly with Monk's active tile triggers for this kind of stuff. Now I have in my configuration settings for Monk's token bar, I've turned off pretty much everything for it, except I've got the roll request parts on here. Ones that you may need to make sure that you've got ticked is capture the saving throw, so you get the results, because we're going to want to use the results of whether they passed or failed for the next step to decide what happens to them, i.e. you failed your saving throw, you're going to fall down the pit and take damage. If you pass your saving throw, we don't care. So how does this work then? Again, this is not a Monk's tutorial. If I now try to cross this pit trap, you will see that it's paused. I got a bit of text. If I just put the chat on the right, you'll see I've got a bit of text here which says the floor beneath you collapses. Help, the floor has collapsed. And it's asked Bob to make a dexterity saving throw, which then Bob can then make. Depending how much automation you want, you can have him need to click the card like I just did. Or if you're using MIDI QOL and you want to fully automate that, you can make sure it rolls on behalf of the player, so you just get the results and the whole thing happens automatically if you wish to. I don't tend to do that with things like traps and, well, with anything actually. I like my players to roll their own dice. So let's have a look at what we did here and what I added on to this. Our list is growing. We've got our sound, of course. I added on this chat message. So that's why we got this top box on the right up here, because you can see the flavor, the floor beneath you collapses, and then the text is help, the floor has collapsed. The speaker, so who's saying that, is the triggering token. So it's Bob in this case. Does he say that in character? Well, let's tick that on and you'll see what difference that makes. And you can say, well, do I want a chat bubble? Just put it in the chat message, or just a bubble, and who can actually see it. So it might be that it only tells the GM, it only tells the player. I've got it on for everyone. So when Bob goes across this, watch for the chat bubble. Help, the floor has collapsed. That pops up. Every single time. Playing the sound every single time, because unlike the tripwire, we haven't deactivated this once it's already shown it. We'll do that at the end. But the interesting thing with a pit trap is you've got the initial collapse and then the pit remains, and you may want your players to then have to make athletics rolls to jump over it later. We can show you later in the video how to kind of automate that as well. Once the pit's revealed, well, then how do you handle automatically them trying to jump across it? We don't need that with the tripwire. Okay, so that's how we did the little message thing, if you want it. But the bit at the bottom here is the bit we're most interested in. Because we've got Monk's token bar in, we've still got all these options, but right at the bottom, we've got other things we can do because of Monk's token bar. Change our movement mode, redirect request results, request a contested roll, so an athletics v athletics roll, or request a roll. So I've got it on request a roll. I want to request it from the triggering token. What type of roll is that? So, I mean, actually, I did my ability rather than saving throw. It's a saving throw dexterity, but look at all the skills you can have. You can just get them to do a dice roll, etc. I'm going to stick mine on dexterity saving throw. What is my DC? I just made it 10. Flavor, make a dex save, whatever you want that to say. You can leave it blank. Is the roll public, private, etc. Easy peasy. I would suggest leaving bypass dialogue on, or otherwise it brings up the GM's box for you to alter it and stuff like that. We don't need to. We're already setting everything we need to. I can tick on auto roll. Okay. Now these bottom bits, we want to know, well, what happens if they pass or fail? Right now, this is the end of our list of things. It doesn't make any difference what we do here. But what we are going to say is, what happens next for the ones that fail? If you pass it, nothing else happens. Fine, you didn't fall down the pit. Well done, congratulations. We want to continue with any token that fails. We're only going to be looking at one token at a time. At one token, if it fails, we want to continue, and we want to continue if any of them fail, right? If anybody passes, or rather, if Bob passes his saving throw, we don't need to continue. Right, so pop that back in, and that is what gives us this lovely effect. Hooray. Bob, an unknown error has occurred. Now, why has this got an unknown error? Because it's tried to automatically make that roll. I don't have roll automation on. I don't have MIDI QOL set up and things like that. So that option, if you get that come up, auto roll, I've not got auto rolls set to take place through any other mods of any description, so it won't do it. It's fine. And I don't want to. Not in this instance. Okay, so just turning that off, we're back to it asks Bob to make a roll. Job done. A 9, we failed it, and then I would do damage, etc. Okay, so let's set that up on this. Don't want to close that door. Let's set that kind of stuff up on here as well. So this is a tripwire. We've got our triggers. I'm not going to put the little message thing in. I just included that for your benefit so that you know that you can do that. We're going to deactivate this tile, but we are going to request a roll. So I'm going to request a roll for the person who triggered it. It's not a death saving throw. That's a little harsh. I might make it for this one an athletics check. I'm going to make it DC 10 as well because it's nice when I'm testing. I like to go with a DC where they'll make it and fail it, so you can test both things. Not going to bother with chat flavor. Public role, yes. Bypass the dialogue. We're going to do the same. Proceed with tokens that fail and proceed if any fail. Okay, that's what we're going to do for this. Just by adding that on, we've now got this. Oh, why is it not doing anything? Do you remember we set this one to deactivate? I need to reactivate it. And it's asked Bob for a roll. We didn't get any text here. We just got the roll request. He made it this time. Off he goes. He can continue on his way. So it's really useful that it's paused the game. It's stopped him from moving. And it's told him that he needs to make that athletics check. Now, again, you can absolutely leave it there. It's pausing the game. It's making sure you know what's going on. It's playing a sound effect if you want it to. Bob's getting the opportunity to make his saving throw. If he makes his saving throw, brilliant. You unpause the game and off you carry on. If he doesn't make the saving throw, then you might be rolling your damage dice. But obviously, as we're starting to automate this, we can take it a step further. The reason I'm doing the video in this way is because you can decide how much automation you want and stop at the step where you kind of go, do you know what, that's enough. I don't need any more. And that might be it for you. You might even not want to bother automating the saving throws. Fine, don't do it. You really don't have to. All right, so next then, let's have a look at what happens next. Okay, so now we want to apply damage to our attack. So I'm going to show you how you can do that really easily, but actually isn't very good. Let me just clear my chat again. So when Bob walks over this trap, it's going to do everything it's done before, including requesting that saving throw. I'm going to make that saving throw at disadvantage. And of course he made the saving throw. Let's try it again. Alright, so did you see? I've put his hit point bar on, which has gone down, and it came up and did 3 points of damage to him. How did we do that? Really, really easily. But this is not the best way to do it. Okay? So what we've added onto the bottom here next is this hurt heal. So hurt heal. Now bearing in mind that this will by default heal if you leave a positive number in there. Okay, so if you want to hurt, you need to put a negative number. So we're going to select our triggering player. We're going to put our value in. So notice I've got minus, because we want to hurt him, double square brackets, 1d6, and close those square brackets. It's got it underneath for you. So you can do a set value. It does a flat 10 damage. It does a flat 15 heal. Or you can do the dice rolls using the brackets like I have. We can add the chat message so you can see it a bit better. And we've got that public roll. So it's obviously making that roll when we do it. Let's just clear the chat with that switched on as well. We're going to do that, and we can see the chat card up here. It's rolled 1d6. It was a 5. It's done 5 damage to Bob. Now the problem with this is, and people rightly so would criticize this and say, well, hang on a minute. What if that is a pit trap? I want them to take bludgeoning damage from the fall. You've got spikes on the picture. I want to do piercing damage as well. I want to do 2 different types of damage. They might be resistant or immune to certain types of damage. This will not take it into account. It doesn't have a damage type. It's flat damage, flat heal. So it's not ideal for a lot of situations. We can improve it. Let's just heal up Bob here. We can absolutely improve that by changing the way that we are doing that hurt heal. I'm going to get rid of hurt because I don't like the way that that applies damage. It's just flat. I'm going to clear my chat as well to keep this nice and tidy for you. I'm going to add on, instead of hurt heal, I'm going to add on an attack. So for this, I've got several choices I need to make. First of all, I'm going to attack Who am I attacking? I'm attacking the triggering token. Now, who is making the attack? This is where it's different. I've got to select an actor. Well, conveniently, I've produced an actor for this that I've called Trap Damage. It's an NPC. Doesn't need pictures or anything like that because they're never going to see it. But it's the one that's going to make the attack rolls for us. I have created, now bearing in mind it's an attack, so you do need to create this as a weapon. So I've created a weapon that I've called Pit Trap Fall Damage. If I edit this, what you'll see is, I don't care about description. I don't care about any of these details at all because we're only doing damage. We're not actually making attack rolls. The only time you might is if you want to make sure that that damage is coming from a magical source or from a silvered source that might overcome certain resistances. But this is a pit trap. Unless I've spent an awful lot of money silvering the spikes in the bottom of my pit trap, bit extravagant, it's not going to be relevant, okay? Or it's a magical set of spikes, which again, you know, unlikely, but you can do it. Under activities, this will default to the attack activity because you've added a weapon. I've deleted the attack activity and I've added a damage activity. This is a pit trap. They are falling into it. The dexterity save that they failed is what we needed for to be able to decide whether we were going to do damage. We don't need to make an attack roll here. Not for the pit trap. So I've given this damage. I don't care about this. I don't care about any of this. It doesn't matter. Under effect, I can add my damage on. I've put 1d6 bludgeoning and 1d4 piercing. So now when we come out of here and I come back to here and I choose who my actor is that's making the attack, I'm going to select my entity and choose my trap damage. I will pick which of the attacks that that character has. We've only got one at the moment, pitfall damage. I'm going to use that. It's not an attack because I'm doing damage. I'm going to use that. I'm going to show it on the chat card. We're going to do a public roll, no problem. And I'm going to update. Okay, so now when we look at when poor Bob wanders across here, let's bring this up. Come on, Bob. We're going to get exactly what we've got before. It's now going to ask about making a dexterity saving throw. I'm going to do it at disadvantage. He made it. Of course he did. This is why you don't put the DC high when you're testing. Come on, Bob. You can fail it, mate. Let's not clear the chat for the moment. He's just gonna keep making it, isn't he? Because, you know, sod the law. Ray, he's failed. Okay, so you can see that straight away, as soon as he's failed, it has continued on in that list of instructions to that damage. I know it's got it put twice because I've got it switched on to show the extra chat card. It is now asking me to roll the pitfall damage, which is a d6 and a d4. You can see bludgeoning, piercing. I can roll that and then I can apply that damage. So you can see that we've got a 2 for bludgeoning, a 3 for piercing, a total of 5 damage. If he had resistance to piercing damage, it would have halved it. Halved the piercing damage, not the bludgeoning damage. So that's how you can do this and make it much more realistic. So that is much more realistic, isn't it, for falling into a pit trap. He falls in. He has to make his saving throw. If he fails it, damage is done. Piercing, bludgeoning, etc. Now, I haven't got this fast forwarding these rolls. I'm manually doing it. If you're using something like MIDI QOL to automate all of your dice rolls and stuff, wrong one, then absolutely great. But we can fast forward rolls on here as well. So if I tick this fast forward roll, I have not got MIDI QOL or anything like that on. When we fail it, go on, fail it. I'm just going to straight away roll that damage. I still need to apply it because MIDI would normally do that for us. It's just going to make it a bit quicker. It cuts out one of the steps. All right, let's heal him back up again. Now we want to do something similar. I'm just going to hide that again. We want to do something similar with our trap up here, our tripwire. Now remember, once our tripwire's gone off, it deactivates. I'm going to reactivate it before I forget, because I'm bound to. What do we want this to do? We want this to make a crossbow attack, yeah? As an example. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to look at this and go, right, once you've made your athletics check, because that's what we decided to go with, that's probably not the right one. It should be a dexterity saving throw, but we're doing this for example. We are going to have that continued if fail. Okay. And we are going to potentially have that attack. Now, you've got two choices of doing this. Because it's an attack roll, you might say, well, I don't want a saving throw and then an attack roll. That doesn't make sense. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that. We've got a saving throw for the pit trap. We're going to do a straight out attack. I'm going to add on an attack, the person who sets it off, and I need to select my actor again. Trap damage. What attack am I using? Pitfall trap damage, fall damage. I don't want that, do I? We need to create another attack on here. So this is actually going to be an attack. And we can do this however we like. We can actually stick the weapon on there. I'm just going to do it like this. Crossbow trap. That's what I'm going to do. I can then say that, yeah, this is a simple melee. What base weapon is it going to be, etc. Martial melee. Oh, so, martial melee, idiot. Ranged. Light crossbow. And then I can use any of these that I want to. If I need to have magical attacks, silvered or whatever, I can do that. I can put the range. Doesn't matter for this because it's going to be attacked anyway. And then I can add my normal damage formula, whatever I want to use for this. Let's just do a D6 piercing. Okay, that's standard. Now we can give it limited uses. We don't need to worry about that because it's going to be activated by the trap. And what is the activities? It's going to be an attack. We can leave that as default. This is default. We don't need to worry about it. We don't need to worry about consumption. We don't need to worry about targeting. We do need to worry about the effect, but we've already got that in there. Now, of course, it's going to default to this character's ability to hit, which we may not want to do. We might want to override that and give a flat bonus to hit. So we can either turn off the attack ability and say it's a +2 to hit, or we can literally say it's a flat bonus. Okay, so flat bonus to hit, ignore the ability modifier proficiency, any other bonuses from the actor, and only the bonuses defined by the activity will be used calculating it. Let's say it's got +4 to hit. We want to make sure we do occasionally hit him. We can adjust anything we would for a normal weapon. We can include that base damage. There it is. If we want to do that, we can. If we want to apply effects like maybe it's poisoned, etc., we can do that if we want to. We're going to leave this quite plain. We've got a crossbow trap. Thank you very much. So we've got those two things on there now. Now on here, it's not going to let me select it straight away because I was already in it. Now we can choose crossbow trap. Okay, so for the same actor, is going to have all of our trap types of damage and stuff like that. Type is going to be an attack, show the card, public roll. I'm going to fast forward them. I'm going to roll the damage. I'm just going to get it to do that. Attempt to roll the damage if it exceeds the AC. Okay, then we're going to update that. So how's this going to work when we try to walk across it? Now, hopefully you know what it's supposed to do. Let's see if it does. Right, we got our twang. We got our trap damage up here. It didn't actually make the roll. Why not? What have I done wrong? Well, I wish I hadn't have paused the video while I just checked that out because it was quite embarrassingly simple. It was the very first thing I checked, of course. Our issue was on here is I had that as attack instead of use. I want to use the attack item. I don't want to attack. That was all it is. I did on the pit trap one, didn't I? And I forgot to do it on this one. So once again, we can have those on fast forward. I just changed that to use, update that tile, and then we can just go boink. And there you can see our attack roll comes up. We can make our attack roll and we can see if we can hit him or not. Then we can roll our damage and apply that damage, etc. So that's all going to work. And if you are using MIDI QOL, of course, you can have that automatically roll the attack. It will automatically check if it hits, then automatically roll the damage. So that now works as we would hope it would. Yeah, we've hit, we can do our damage, we can apply our damage. And you can see that the dice roll there, we are rolling a d6, we got a 4, and it is piercing damage it's applying. So that's a slightly different way of doing it from the pit trap where we're only applying damage. For this one, we are getting it to make the attack roll instead. So rather than using a saving throw to avoid the trap, it's like the trap's gone off. And this will, of course, and a good thing about this type of trap is it takes into account their armor class. So if they're wearing plate mail armor, they're less likely to get pierced by this arrow. If they've got a good dexterity, they're less likely to get struck by the arrow. You can layer it, of course you can, and go, oh, I need you to make a saving throw. If you fail the saving throw, then it attacks you, and therefore it will do a normal attack. You can do that if you want to. It depends on your trap. I would suggest you pick one or the other. You either use the saving throw to see if they can avoid the trap completely, or you use the weapon attack method for this type of trap to do it that way. But we can do other things as well. So I'm going to set up the next one, and then I'll show you what we can do with more things we can do with these kind of traps. Right, now we know how to set up an attack from an actor. Anything, any type of attack that an actor can do against another actor becomes fair play. So this is going to look very similar, but when I now trip this tripwire, notice that this attack roll is the firebolt spell. It's not a crossbow anymore. So we're doing the same thing. We are making an attack roll. We are potentially hitting. We are rolling our damage. This is going to be D10. It's going to be fire damage. We're going to apply that. That's all good. So we rolled a 4 and it is fire damage. It says on the right hand side there. So this is really, really easy because we already know how to do this. We've already created this. We've just made some changes. So just bring over to the middle there. I've added on another item here. Okay, so again, I added it on as a weapon. Fine. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Edit it. Go away. Thank you. Edit it. And again, I deleted the attack activity. So we've got the crossbow attack. We had the remove the attack and replace it with the damage for the pit trap. So it just does damage. And in this case, I added on cast to select a spell. And then under here, I found the spell. I added firebolt on. I can override attack bonus and any save damage, save DCs that I want to for this character. So remember, because we're using one actor for all of these different things, if I give it a really high dexterity, that's going to apply to every single trap, which we probably don't want to do. So we're going to override the values with what we want. Okay, so the different spell effects from traps will have different spell DCs, different attack bonuses from different types of trap, etc. You can all do that by doing the overrides. So that's all we did for Firebolt, and we added that on. And of course, get rid of all of that. On here, all we did was for the attack, triggering token, we selected our trap actor and we selected that weapon instead. So now we can change this trap really easily just by choosing the ones of this. Oh, look, we've got Firebolt spell there as well because it's added it to his spell book. So actually we can do it direct from the spell book. We don't need to have it on the item. The only problem is doing it from the spell book, of course, is the fact that it's added the normal spell, which will take into account the character's intelligence for casting or whatever the spell, whatever the casting ability is. I want to override it, so I'm going to be using my ones. This is the important bit. This is what I got right with the pit trap. I got wrong with the crossbow. I've got it right with the fire trap. Is you want this to be use. And of course, you don't need to show the chat cards and things like that. You can just fast forward it. And once again, if you've got MIDI, it will make all those rolls for you, and it will do those bits if you use that kind of workflow. And I use that workflow only for DM stuff. So it will pause while the character rolls their saving throw, but then it will roll damage and apply the damage automatically after that. So anything where the player gets to interact, I leave that untouched so they can interact. Anything where the DM has to actually do some work, I tend to automate because I'm lazy. Just saves me a lot of button clicking, so it will do it automatically. So we've got two very different types of traps here that both work very, very nicely. Now, of course, we can go on to add different effects and things like that. And that's what I'm going to come back with. I'm going to add a few extra bits and bobs on here and show you both of these in a much more kind of automated, showy kind of way so that you can see it looking a bit prettier. Okay, so we've added a few more little details and things just to make it look a little bit nicer. And of course you can go to the nth degree of doing this. We've already added some really basic sounds on. But now let's set off this original tripwire that we did. We get our twang sound, we get our attack roll. I'm going to attack with advantage. We now got a little animation to go with it. Okay, really nice and simple. Everything's working exactly as it was before. It's just that we've also got that animation. We can do our damage, of course, etc. So let's just walk into that again. And if you watch up here, you'll see this animation fly across. We missed on that occasion. So this is an important point if you want to add animations to it. A couple of things that you will need to be aware of. First of all, how are we doing the animations? I know a lot of you will already know this. I've added automated animations on. Now, we did only have the 2. Now we've got 5 because sequencer and socket lib both come with automated animations. It needs those 2 to work. So that's why we're now up to 5. Now, notice that I do not have any of the big animation packs like JB2A or anything else like that installed. Automated animations comes with a bunch of its own things. But with things like our arrow trap, it's actually firing from the source to the target. So I need to have, if I delete this dude and I do it again, our trap will work perfectly well. But look, it's trying to do an animation. See that red arrow at the top of the screen? Sequencer is going, hang on a minute, you told me that you wanted to fire an arrow from the source to the target. There is no source on the map. So in that instance, I need a source. Hence this dude on here, who appears to be concentrating. Let's get rid of that. We need to have this dude on here. Now, I'm going to hide it. Players don't need to see it. I don't want the players to see it. You can make that minuscule, give it any icon you want for you. You can hide it, you know, under the staircase, in a wall, anywhere you like, just to move it out the way. But we do need that arrow to fire from somewhere to somewhere. So on the actual actor itself, I went to the crossbow trap. I went to edit. And because I've named these myself, automated animations will not pick it up and go, oh, well, you clearly want to use an arrow for that. It's going to go, well, I don't know what that is. It's 3 dots, automated animations. And you can see that I've already got, I've already got mine in. I'd already created it. But you can create it by creating a custom one, choosing whatever it is that you need, etc. And get that all set up for you. I've already done it. So you can choose whatever you like. Now, an arrow made sense for this particular trap. I called it a crossbow trap, but I've used an arrow rather than a bolt. And what it means is with that on there is indeed when we go to do this, let's just move it over to one side. As soon as I roll that attack roll, it will fire an arrow, which looks much, much nicer. So really, really simple. I've not applied any damage to Bob from that, but normally I would. What about our pit trap? We can add a little animation onto that as well. We know how that works. I've taken a couple of the pause game bits off just because it interferes with you guys in the video. Normally I would leave that on. When we go over the pit trap, we get a floor collapsed. I've still got the game paused. I'm going to make my roll, but keep an eye on Bob. Boom. We got a little animation. It just goes big like cloud of smoke as he fails his saving throw and falls into the pit. Okay, so when we go to apply that damage, then it will play the animation because the damage is on the features item here. So when it runs this to apply the damage, then I've got generic boulder impact is what I selected for this one. That's what it's using, and we get that little thing. So it just adds a little extra something, right? It's quite nice. What about this doorway over here? Now, as we go through this doorway, something else is going to happen to poor Bob. We're going to get that fire trap. We heard our little twang. We can make our attack, and we get our firebolt. Now, note, that firebolt came out from our actor because it's this actor that has firebolt on it. Now, that might not make sense. So something to bear in mind, that if we've got this actor on and it's doing the arrows and it's doing the firebolt, it's always going to be the source. So while I said, and I, correctly, that you can just build up all of your trap damages onto one card, if you've got multiple traps in the same scene that have that animation of firing from the source to the target, they're all going to come from... Who does it fire from if you've got multiple versions of this on? So you may need to split your various traps out across different things, across different actors, so that you can put those different actors in different places. I mean, it's really easy. I mean, you can just clone this. You go, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call that trap damage 2 or trap fire damage, or whatever you want to call it. And you can just use that and drag that actor out, and then it will know. You'll need to change your tile to make sure it's selecting the right actor to use from. But you could set multiple different traps up in the same scene, like I've done, but with different actors as the source of the bolt versus the fireball, etc. Now for this one, note that I can walk in this square without setting off the trap. If I use some DM magic, I can walk in this square without setting off the trap. I can't walk through the doorway. Now, how have we managed to do that? I have not put a trap on the wall, which is what some of you might think. Just get rid of that. Move out of the way, Bob. What I did with this one is I used the same tripwire trap as the one we used up there. I just made it really skinny, and I put it across here. So because it's basically one line thick, standing in this square just to the right of it, I haven't entered this tile. Standing here, I have not entered that tile. Crossing over it, I've effectively entered the tile to move through it. So by making this really, really skinny, that effectively puts that trap on the threshold of this door. Now we've still got the twang sound, but that makes it seem like the twangy string is actually across the doorway like that. Yeah, as opposed to being, oh, the tripwire's here. It's like, no, the tripwire's actually in the door. So you can absolutely do that, and just move and be a bit careful about where you put your little trigger tiles. Now, what you can do, of course, is you can go, well, what if I want exactly the same trap in this doorway and this doorway as well? You could put the source of your flame darts on a statue that's, I don't know, in the middle of the room. And then you can clone, just basically take this. Bit difficult to select because it's so skinny. I can select that and I can paste that out wherever that went. There it is. Let me unlock this. This is the problem with using skinny ones. I'm going to change that back to not being that way round. Whee! And I can put that in that doorway. And wherever it went, I can put it in that doorway. So now, without doing any changes, I haven't tested this, I'm going to get exactly the same effect, and it's going to come from him. So whichever of these doorways I try to use, that statue, or whatever it is going to be the source of that firebolt. So that's a really nice way of being able to have multiple triggers to make it look like the statue or whatever it is firing out these bolts in the directions. Now, of course, you don't have to have a sound effect on those trap triggers. It could be that they are completely silent and the players do not know, and they've got to work their way across the room and work out which squares are safe and which ones are not. And every time they get it wrong, somebody gets a firebolt or whatever spell you choose to use, crossbow, whatever it is that you want to use for that. It's getting blatted again. Now I have got another one down here just to show a bit more versatility with this. As I move down onto this one, you can just see this trap here. It's going to do something slightly different. Let's clear that chat. When we move on this one, I've still got my twang sound. I didn't take that off. This one is casting hold person. It's asking him to make a saving throw. He made it on this occasion. So disadvantage. He's failed his saving throw. He's been paralyzed. So any spell, because we did Firebolt, obviously, but you can do any spell in exactly the same way that you like. So that you can have it, you walk through the doorway, you trip something, and it casts hold person, or fireball, or healing, or aid. It could be positive spells. It doesn't have to be negative. So you could have a temple where everybody who crosses the threshold to the inner sanctum automatically gets the aid spell cast on them. Why not? You 100% you can do that using exactly the same methods and things, which is pretty cool. Now we've focused on pit traps and tripwires for this, and the fact that there's an awful lot of versatility, lots of things you can do with them, from really basic, just having a marker to remind you it's there, up to automating damage, automating attacks, putting some graphics and things on it. But there are, of course, lots and lots of different traps that we can do. There will be another video that follows this, not immediately, but there will be another video, part 2 of this, where we're looking at different types of traps. Teleporter traps, revolving doors, and things like that. If you have a type of trap that you would like me to look at and show you how to do it, leave it in the comments. And I no promises, because when I say this to you guys, you tend to come out with these really massively complex things. So no promises, but let's give it a go. Let's see what we can do and build a game step by step, really simply, and build up to a trap that is going to work and do what you want at the level of automation that you want to include. I haven't got MIDI QOL on mine, but a lot of my dice rolls and things, I would have MIDI QOL running those dice rolls, so that when any of these traps, I walk over here, it wouldn't be asking me for the attack roll. MIDI would just be doing that for me. They would just be kind of like seeing the bolt and go, whoa, what happened? And automatically taking the damage. And because it's a fire attack, it would handle anything like resistances and things like that. So that's the way I would do it. Because I don't want to be bothering doing admin for traps. I want to set them up, and then once I've got that trap, I've got it, and then I can use it anywhere within here, just with a copy and paste within the same game. One thing to warn you, that might be a little bit excessive. One thing I want to show you on here, when you are using automated animations, you may have an issue, and I want to explain to you what that is. When we do this attack option for any of these, happens to be Firebolt, whether it's the spellcasting ones, the crossbow ones, etc. Because this is saying I'm going to be attacking the triggering token from our trap actor using this attack, it doesn't need to target them, because this is telling it what the target is. If that makes sense, yeah? When your automated animations wants to run, it wants to know, well, where am I playing this animation? If you want me to play it on the target, I don't know who the target is. That's why I've got this extra line in here. Action, target. I want to switch targets to the triggering token, and if I change it for the GM, I mean, there's options here. You can change it for everybody. If I change it for the GM, then my GM-owned tokens, i.e. this dude, is going to have that as the target. And you've probably already seen that. You can see I'm targeted right now. If I select the right thing, when I walk through here, you'll see that it will put the targeting around him to show that he's now targeted. Now, you're going to ask a question, or you're going to still have troubles with this. Why have I got my target after my attack? This attack will clear the target. So if I have my target before that, just drag those the other way round, it will go, oh, I'm going to select him as the target, and now I'm going to clear the target as part of doing the damage firebolt, and then automated animations will go, well, I don't know who your target is. Because this will run through, it will run this target one before you finished. It will kick off attack, and then it will run target before the attack has finished. So by the time you've got to rolling your dice and stuff like that, it's already moved on and it's already targeted, ready for automated animation. So just be aware of that if your animations aren't running because it can't find the target, that's the one you want. Slap that one in there. So hopefully this gives you a really good idea of how you can do traps in your game, get them up and running. Simple ones like this. Like I say, we are going to look at some other ones, teleporting, rotating walls and bits and bobs to do something a bit more fancy. But yeah, let me know if there's particular type of traps you want to use, or you've got a particular trap from a module in mind. You to go, oh, how would you make this and automate or animate or anything like that? Yeah, let me know and we'll give it a go. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. I know we've done trap videos like this before, and some of you are kind of going, nothing really new here, but we do have new audience. Of course, we are now in version 13. Monk's active tile triggers has been updated. Some people don't know, so you know, I don't think there's any harm in going over this again. If you do know all of this stuff and you've got to this point in the video, thank you for watching anyway. Really appreciate that. Yeah, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.